So we now have Nexmo and Alex. I'm just getting it set up. There we go. So I'll just hand over to you, as we've already talked about you several times during the day.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning. So before we begin, I think I want to share the story with you. We're always talking about APIs. And it reminded me of 4 years ago speaking with our founder when he said, he proposed to me, you want to join Nexmo? We're going to disrupt the telecom market. And, my bullshit radar was on, and I said, what are you talking about? He showed me the website and said, this is SMS and voice. It's the same thing we've been doing. I joined, and sure enough, we're here today. If all goes well this year, we should be around $70 million in revenue. So there's actually a business there. And so Alan asked us to talk about creating winning customer experiences. So I want to share a little bit about Nexmo for those of you who don't know us, and then give you some examples of what some of our customers are doing, and leave you with a bunch of use cases, which we also have on our website. So first of all, a little background on Nexmo, tell you a little bit about our vision of what's broken in the telecom industry and how we are fixing those issues, addressing them in order to enable access to the telco world for our customers. And then we'll talk about the use cases. So first of all, Nexmo. We're a cloud communication API, basically very focused today on SMS and voice. Some people here mention identity, and so I think that's going to be the next phase of where we're going. So today we have over 70,000 customers in 235 countries, and of course since SMS voice is the lowest common denominator, we provide access to over 7 billion users. A lot of OTTs use us. I'd say roughly 80% of the market uses Nexmo as a supplier for delivering their verification messages, which is very key for their as they grow and during their acquisition. The quality of that delivery is key because they're spending a lot of money in acquiring those users. Like I said, we're cloud-based, RESTful API, SMS voice, pay-per-use model, which is quite disruptive, and I'll explain to you now why. In terms of our products, I think we could break them down into 4 main categories. One is messaging, outbound and inbound, cloud phone numbers like Voxbone for SMS and for voice, voice API, so enabling outbound voice via voice XML and SIP, and then our number insights API, which allow our customers to know their clients. The trends we see, basically mobile has become the primary device. Like we said earlier, people access their information, they read their email, they IM, they call, they SMS, everything. Security and privacy are becoming a growing concern as more and more information moves to the cloud. And the phone number is emerging as a unique ID. I think we all agree on that. And this new generation of companies and apps are wanting to go global from day one, right? Nobody launches, give you an example, an Airbnb just to serve the Bay Area, The idea is always to go global to scale. So, and they need an easy way to be able to do that, and we'll explain now why they need to work with an API. So there's been a proliferation of APIs, which has driven agility. We've seen it in all the discussions here with the carriers, and communication is shifting to IP. Which is, we've seen that with the growth of the OTT businesses, which we work closely with. So there's huge opportunity in the enterprise communications if you're able to serve them right. The issue with the existing communication value chain is, this is kind of our vision, right? So there's huge barriers to entry. If you want to access the telco world, you need to go to a carrier, get a contract. First, you have to speak to the right person. But once you get past that, you get a contract, you have high monthly fees, huge setup costs. You face maybe major bank guarantees, which it took us, I'd say, close to a year to get set up in France. Of course, guarantees are always a challenge, but we try to avoid them. But sometimes you have to. But you can easily spend 6 months just trying to connect to a carrier if you're new to the business, if you're getting started. Say you're connected, the next thing you do is we said apps want to go global from day one, right? So, inevitably, you're not going to replicate that in every country because it's just not scalable. So you're going to go to an aggregator, right? If you go to an aggregator, you enter into this. You no longer really know how those messages are delivered. The whole kind of aggregator ecosystem works on a least cost routing logic. Everybody is there's a lot of hops in the value chain. I'll explain that to you shortly, and everybody's taking a piece of that money of the margin, but also you lose control of how that message gets delivered. So, for example, you don't know how that message ultimately, how it'll show up on the end user's phone. Will it have the proper sender? Will it end up with a long number as a sender? What will the end user see? And then, of course, assuming once you've addressed the delivery issue, you're facing a super complex, fragmented regulatory environment. Every country has its own rules and regulations. So the first two we address very easily. We have a RESTful API, 3-step process, first name, last name, email, and you're signed up. We have like I said, RESTful API, and it's a pay-as-you-go model. So you pay per SMS, no monthly, no setup, nothing. Prepay, you begin sending. I think we always use the example of Viber, one of our customers. I think they signed up on a weekend, and it took 4 minutes from when they registered their Nexmo account to when they sent the first message. That's how easy it was. So compare that to negotiating with a carrier during 6 months. Yeah, it's just, that's why it works. And then, degradation of quality of service. I think that's worth spending a minute. So on the top left here is how the value chain works. Basically, when you go global, you connect to an aggregator, and then there's multiple hops to the final carrier, right? What we did is, first of all, we try to minimize those hops by using a one-hop max kind of policy for delivering to every carrier, right? So we're either directly connected or through a local partner who is directly connected to the local carrier. There are some countries where you just can't go direct, right? Brazil, you can't connect as an aggregator directly anymore. They've limited the number of aggregators. So we get connected directly, but that's still not enough to really control quality. What we do is we track transactions from our customers. So every time, because most of our traffic is transactional, there's a lot of verification and transactional traffic, every SMS is associated to either a successful or an unsuccessful transaction, and we track that, and we associate that to each SMS that was sent. That means we have a true vision of the quality of delivery across the world, not just based on delivery receipts, which sometimes can be false. It's another story. Some of you may know. So, and even latency, depending on when the operator sends you back the delivery receipt, you may have a false idea of what the true latency is. So we call these conversions. And we feed that conversion information into our algorithm for routing and make sure that we're always optimizing the route. And so that's how we resolve the quality of service problem. Finally, the regulatory is a little more straightforward, but still quite complex. If you want to go global and you're based in California, you have no clue what's going on in India or in France, and you need someone to guide you, and that's the role that Nexmo plays in the value chain. So, take France for example. If every non-compliant SMS that you send could be fined contractually, €100 per SMS. So imagine you're doing a campaign of 1 million SMS. It's 100 million exposure, right? It's crazy. It's kind of surreal, but it's true. So we make sure you do things right and protect you from yourself, kind of thing. And I think another example is India, where you need to, if you're sending transactional traffic, you need to be able to send that message at any time of the day, right? If someone is downloading an app 2 in the morning, they need to receive that confirmation. So what we do is we register our client sender with the local authorities to make sure it's whitelisted and all messages go through. Just doing that increases conversions from maybe 40% to around 90%. So just some carrier partners, give you an idea. We have roughly 200 suppliers on the back end, of which maybe 60 are carriers. And finally, Alan, you like this. It's not just about the API. I found this last night, actually, on our new website. This is our commitment to our customers. So it made me think of what we were talking about yesterday, right? Go-to-market. We're always talking about building the API. It's not building the API. It's you really have to want to kind of provide the service to your customers, right? So we're all about focusing on the customer. I don't know how many companies you know where every employee has gone through customer support. Our office manager is still in our help desk academy. We get a hoodie for that, but that's not the reason we do it. It's part of the culture within Nexmo. So I think, yeah, the reason Nexmo works is not just because of the API, which is great. It's an easy way to access, but after that, it's what happens after that. That means that your customers stay with you, they grow with you, and yeah. So that's enough on Nexmo. In terms of use cases, so telco assets can be used in basically every vertical for many different use cases. I'm not going to discuss each one. I just want to share with you for a couple of these new generation companies how they're using telco assets to improve customer experiences. First one being Airbnb. For those of you who don't know Airbnb, it's basically, you have guests and hosts. It's a marketplace for guests and hosts, so I can rent out my apartment to someone else who's looking to travel to come to my city, and it's like instead of using Booking.com, you have a more personalized experience, a different way to travel, really. So imagine, one thing they do is they verify their users. They allow their users to verify themselves with a phone number, which increases, so it's like it increases the trust that you have in maybe the host that you're going to be staying at. If just the fact that I'm a verified user means that Alan say he's going to trust me more. He knows that I've been verified by Airbnb, and I'm a real user. And the way they do that is with SMS or voice. They actually give you the option to verify via call or via SMS. But what really gets interesting is once you're verified, you get to choose to be notified by SMS. So what this means is that, say I'm traveling to the US and I'm sitting around at night booking my trip, and I want to stay, let's see, at Alan's house between 20th and 25th November. But he's out to dinner. So how's he going to respond to my reservation request? The way Airbnb works, there's a two-phase reservation request. First you request, then you get a confirmation, and only then can you complete your booking. So it's a two-phase. And SMS enables them to augment the number of transactions that actually go through thanks to that notification. Because when I make a reservation request for 20th to 25th November, Alan receives an SMS. And he can respond to that SMS in real time, and I'll get a response. And I'm, okay, then I can book, and I'm done, right? Otherwise, keep in mind, Airbnb is competing with the likes of Booking.com, Hotels.com, Expedia, all these guys, right? So this is really, really key to both their business results and to customer satisfaction. Another example is Zipcar. Most of you probably know. It's a car sharing service. They create a great customer experience thanks to the interaction with SMS by not only confirming, sending an initial confirmation SMS to the end user, but also by, of course, reminding them an hour before. But the great thing is here, where they actually, 30 minutes before the car is due back, they send you a reminder and they allow you to extend your reservation. I use other car sharing services in Madrid, and they don't do that. It sucks. It's not the same. You have to dig through your email to find a number which is hidden somewhere at the bottom. This is much better. Very common use case during acquisition phase, sending a validation code. One thing we also do TTS, which is text to speech, which is using a voice call with a pre-recorded message with a code to complement the coverage. So in some countries, it's very hard to deliver SMS. So despite what some people may think SMS is not a perfect science, it's not so easy to deliver to 100% of destinations. So that can be complemented with text to speech, which is almost foolproof. A couple more examples. I can't put the company names, but this is for Number Insight. This is kind of similar to some of the things we've seen this morning. Number Insight is a product which is very simple. You send in a query for a given phone number, and you get back a response in terms of, is that number valid? Is it reachable? What operator does it belong to? Is it roaming, etc. And it's based, what's under the hood for Number Insight is a bunch of your HLR and portability database. That's how we built it. And it's just as complicated as SMS. You're smiling, but your service earlier, it said I wasn't roaming. So it doesn't always work that well. So it's just an additional way to learn to get insight into a phone number. So, example, a debt collection agency, what they do is every night, at the end of the day, they put together a list of phone numbers they're going to be calling the next day, and they just filter out the numbers that aren't valid. Next morning at 8 a.m., before they begin making the calls and the customer service reps come in to begin calling, they make sure that the numbers are reachable. And any number that's not reachable gets pushed to the end of the queue so that they are optimizing the time of the customer service rep who they're paying a wage for, right? It's a huge value there. Credit card company, you've probably seen this or heard about this use case, but basically, I'm in Chicago, I'm paying with my credit card, and credit card, instead of just, refusing my transaction, sends a simple Number Insight query to Nexmo, checks the location, says, okay, user's roaming, probably not a fraudulent transaction. We'll let it go through. There's a fine line always between security and customer experience, but that's a great use case. And then contextualizing communication. I think being able to know where the person is and based on that, deciding how you're going to communicate with them is super important. I wish my carrier did it. I get called every time I travel. I get inevitably, I'm in Chicago and I get a phone where they're trying to upsell me or do a customer survey, right? I mean, why am I paying $3 to speak to a customer service rep? That's just one example. There's many more. And so these are some, I think, more interesting use cases that we're going to be seeing more and more of. And finally, you can find a lot of use cases on our website. So I'll just leave that here in the presentation. You can take a look later.
Thank you so much. So a great example on how to build a B2B, $70 million B2B business in a few years. So any questions? Dean? I can see one. Oh, I'll go for Sebastian.
I have a question. If you see value in higher level APIs, so what we've seen is like pure SMS, what you're offering. Do you think it would make sense to offer like a verification API where you also have the logic of sending the token, verifying it, and then just sending it okay or not okay? Is there value in these kind of things, or is it, are the application developers advanced enough to do that themselves all the time?
Yeah. We launched that 2 weeks ago.
Okay, didn't know that. Thanks.
There's definitely value because it'll allow us to reach the long tail of those who don't already do that. The big guys, the Lines, the Kakaos, the Airbnbs, they already have that logic in-house. Yeah.
So it looks like there's a lot of ways of using insight into numbers, but there's also, based on other presentations, lots of ways of getting temporary numbers from other services. So what could go wrong here when half of these use cases are faced with a temporary number that people have or a second number?
So maybe let's look at them.
So for example,
for
if I'm taking out a loan, I'll get a temporary number and give it to them.
Sure. That's, yeah, I don't know that.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
not
that's
sure if
part
there's
of
a
the
way.
skill. Data's dirty.
Yeah.
SMSs don't always go through, so it's part of the service provider saying, it's most probably this, or it's most probably this. This is why this is failing.
It's just it sounds like we've heard two conflicting stories over the last day. One is we'll give you temporary numbers, another is we'll use your number as ID.
Arm supplier.
Yeah. So on the credit card company, they have your real number, right? And that's not it. Well, it's one of the many pieces of information the credit card company has. So the likelihood of them having your real number is pretty high.
But there will be some of the customers that use temporary numbers. I mean, there's failure rates all the way through it. Nothing's ever accurate once you start touching the SS7 network and its databases.
Yeah, and another thing is it's like going through security, right? This is just one extra factor which decreases the fraudulence, the probability that this is a fraudulent.
Oh, one more for Mark.
Sorry, just a quick question on the number insight, specifically location. How widely supported is that, and what level of accuracy do you get?
I think the support question is the key. I think location actually is still not available. So there's 5 or 6 different pieces of information that you can get from an HLR, at least that we have access to, but it really varies on a location by location.
Yeah, because I can think of a number of countries where that would violate federal laws.
Yeah,
Thanks.
It's an issue.
I just wanted to ask about the number insight again, and I wanted to check, are there any privacy concerns that you have to, how do you verify people who are actually doing these lookups?
So
and end user privacy.
Yeah. So Number Insight is still in beta. We haven't opened it up like we have SMS. SMS, you get an account, you go in, first name, last name, email, you have an account, you can begin sending messages. Now we also have there's also a process whereby you get validated also as a customer. But on the Number Insight, we're still in beta. It's very sensitive, and we have access to it as a preferred partner with certain carriers. But we need to validate the use case. So when the bank comes to us, we need to go with the bank to the carrier, get approval for that use case. Yeah. It's not yet so plug and play as we'd like.
Exactly. But I think there's it's an example of a whole host of higher value add APIs that we're going to see emerging over the next few years. So again, let's show appreciation for an excellent presentation. Thank you, Alex.